glad you're here. I'm so glad all righty,
Chauntel Norris to speak with us today. Chauntel is the co-founder and the current program director of the Alabama Prison Birth Project, and she's a leading expert in lactation during incarceration. For those of you who don't know, the Alabama Prison Birth Project is a local nonprofit offering doula support during birth, separation, and postpartum to reduce the harm of prison birth and strengthen families. And they've mostly been focusing on serving women at the Julia Tutwiler prison in Wetumpka. And one of the many services that they do provide is meeting weekly to provide support and education to women who are pregnant at Tutwiler. And for about the last 8 years, we at Holy Trinity have been sending them on a really nutritious lunch once a month for them to bring to that weekly support group. And they sit down and they eat together, and it provides a source of nourishment, but also kind of comfort and a relationship with us. And Chauntel has many accolades as a birth worker and many stories to share today. But she told me that what drives her to do this work is that she is a mom, and she is an aunt, and she is a grandma, and she has witnessed within her own family the trauma that can result from a prison birth. And I think incarceration is something that affects many families as well as the drivers of incarceration, so addiction, mental health issues, economic insecurity. And so for all those reasons, we are so pleased to welcome Chauntel today so we can better understand the issues surrounding prison birth and start to build some more compassion for the women and the families that we hope to reach with our ministry. Thank you, Chauntel.
Without you guys' partnership, our program wouldn't be surviving, okay? Especially in this economy, we'll just say that. But I just cannot thank you all enough for seeing the value in this programming and choosing to support us. Over the years, without stop, rain or shine, you guys have always showed up. So I cannot thank you enough. And today I'm going to share with you what programming are we doing at Tutwiler, why is it important, and I want to also also show you guys some of your impacts, okay? So I'm gonna start by just talking about how we support incarcerated pregnant women at Tutwiler. About me, Stephanie gave a wonderful intro, but I'm a doula, which is a person who supports birth, kind of like a birth coach. I give information, I support people actually in the delivery room, and we support folks after postpartum with their mental health, just talking through things and helping them understand what's happening with their bodies. I'm a certified lactation counselor, a childbirth educator, a peer counselor, but most importantly to me, I'm a mom, I'm an auntie, I'm a grandma, and like Stephanie mentioned, I do come from a justice-impacted family, and I'll get into that a little later. But I do want to give a trigger warning here. There are going to be some activating topics. I'm going to talk about the reality of giving birth while you're incarcerated and being separated from your child, okay? So there are going to be, that's going to pull at our heartstrings, and I just want to let you know in advance that we may have the feels today. All right, so first I want to start by talking about who is being incarcerated. We think of prison, you know, my whole life I thought prison is where folks go who do bad things, right? Like you're a bad person because you're in prison. It was never taught to me that sometimes good people make bad decisions. That was never how I viewed incarceration. In my mind, if you're in prison, you deserve to be there, and I didn't think much about it, right? Like, that's what society tells us, right? But in my own life, my brother's girlfriend, this is a young lady, we grew up in the same community, known each other her whole life. Her mom passed away when she was 12. She was the youngest of 11 siblings. After her mom passed, you know, she kind of was just trying to figure life out, right? Like as most preteens do, right? And she made some bad decisions. She fell into addiction, right? But nothing changed. She still was the same person. She still had a good heart, right? She was doing her best to try to navigate through life without her mom, her person, right? Imagine how you would feel if you were in that situation, right? So she had an addiction issue. She wasn't working because she had an addiction issue, and she stole something that she shouldn't have, right? She got arrested, you know, she bails out, all of those things in community, living her life. She meets my brother, they, you know, partner, become boyfriend, girlfriend. She gets pregnant. Well, guess what? Now she's got to go back to court and have her hearing, and she's found guilty. And they say, you know what? You're going to go to Tutwiler for 8 months. Well, at this point, she's about 5 months pregnant. Wow. I didn't know pregnant people went to prison. Like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? This is America. Like, this is the best we can do? Okay. So she goes on, she has her baby. And at this point, I'm a doula, I'm a birth worker. I know how beautiful birth can be. I know how wonderful it is to have a brand new baby and to love on them and hold them and kiss them. That was not her experience. She gave birth while she was shackled to a bed. Her leg was shackled to the bed. She was immobilized. She couldn't move. No one in her family was notified. People who are incarcerated aren't allowed to have family with them. So she's in a room full of nothing but strangers. 2 correctional officers, a male and a female. No dignity, right? Imagine, for those of you who are giving birth or who attended a birth, maybe your partner had a birth, think about all of the physical exams that happen in that birthing space, right? It's one thing when it's your husband that's with you. It's completely another when there's a male officer that you do not know and your body is exposed in that way, right? Unconscionable. Why would we do this to people, right? And so hearing about her experience and how traumatic it was, and then let me also add, she has the baby, and then within 24 hours, they're separated. Mom has to go back to the prison. Family comes and picks up the baby. My goodness. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm a birth worker, I know what it should be, it should not be this, and somebody needs to do something about it. This is bad wrong, right? And so little did I know that somebody might be me. I wasn't ready for that part. But who's being incarcerated? That's my family story. But let's take a look at who else is being incarcerated. What are some of the drivers to incarceration? Over the last 300 years, 30 years, the rate of female incarceration in the U.S. has increased by 700%, okay? And we can attribute that to the war on drugs, those kind of things that come with mandatory sentencing and all of those. But so we're going to talk about addiction as a driver to incarceration and why these numbers are so high. But 75% of folks who are incarcerated are moms. 2/3 of those have kids that are in school under 18. Okay, so I want you guys to think about your own family. Think about the role that either you or your wife or whatever mother figure in your household. Think about what roles they play, right? They get the kids dressed, they make sure everybody eats, make sure you got clean clothes, cleaning, all of those things. Now imagine removing the primary female caregiver from your home. What's the impact? What does that look like? Is that something we want to be doing if we don't have to? Just something to think about. The median income of women in the year prior to their incarceration was less than $14,000. Okay? So we're talking about poverty, right? Crimes of poverty. If I'm making, first of all, can anybody in here imagine being able to survive off of $14,000 a year? Absolutely not now, right? And so, but if you have children, they still gotta eat, right? Alabama Power still wants their money, right? So how do I figure this out? Sometimes it's a crime, right? Like sometimes it's, I had a client who stole a pack of hamburger meat to feed her baby. My goodness. Imagine if we had social supports, right? To get folks what they need. Perhaps we could do that as opposed to incarcerating folks, right? Maybe if we thought about things in that way, as opposed to punitive. 90% is the proportion of incarcerated women who've had early childhood trauma. So whether that's sexual trauma, physical trauma, child abuse, all of those, 90%. We know that trauma can be a trigger for addiction issues, right? When folks are experiencing trauma, and this is early childhood, before you turn 18, right? 2/3 of the women that we work with were raised by people other than their parents. Let that sink in. I'm not saying that every foster home is a bad foster home, but I'm saying it does happen, right? Which is what leads to some of these high rates of trauma in early childhood. But imagine if we had mental health support for folks, those types of interventions, so that they might not lean into addiction, right? If we supported them again in our society, in our communities, right? Giving them the love and support they need to be able to thrive. All right, and then this is Julian Tutwiler Prison. This is where we work. In about 2014, there was a judgment. There was a lawsuit brought on by the Department of Justice against Tutwiler because Tutwiler was one of the top 10 worst prisons in the United States. The abuse against the women from male officers was unimaginable. Okay, so the DOJ had to get involved and say, hey, you guys gotta make a lot of changes. You need to hire more women officers. You need to have cameras everywhere. We're gonna start holding you accountable. And so one of the things, or a couple of the things they were required to do was to provide gender responsive and trauma-informed care. Meaning we know that women are a special population and they need special care, and you guys are gonna have to start acknowledging that. And so one of the healthcare workers that worked there had seen a video, I think it was a BBC video about the Minnesota Prison Doula Project. And he said, man, I wonder if that's something that we could bring here, because we're supposed to be making all these changes to particularly cater to the women and their special needs, wonder if that's something we could do here. And so they put out a call to the local doula community. Ashley, our co-founder, was there, I was there, and we just had a roundtable meeting about if this is even possible here in Alabama. And we said, yeah, we think we can. You know, this is what doulas do. I think we can support these folks. And Ashley, you know, she took the ball and started running with it, and she helped us get established as our nonprofit. And essentially, the Deputy Director of Women's Services at that meeting said it's not a matter of if we're going to do this, it's the right thing to do. It's just a matter of how and when. You know, like, how are we going to make this work and figure it out? So at that moment, the Alabama Prison Birth Project was born. All right, and so the things that we offer one-on-one doula support, group childbirth education, and lactation support, okay? So we offer one-on-one doula support, meaning we, each client, as long as they want one, it's not obligatory, but if they want a doula, they're able to have one. Their doula goes with them, well, she'll meet with them before they have their baby to just see, you know, what are your birth preferences? What would you like? Do you have any concerns? Then she goes with them to the hospital when they're there to have their baby. And one of the things that she does in that space is to help preserve her dignity. So the officers are still present, but what that looks like now is when an exam is happening, the doula is standing up at the foot of the bed holding up a sheet, right? So that nobody is able to visually see what's going on. It's not their business, right? She's also there to help relay or explain information. If the nurse comes in and says, hey, I'm hanging this bag on your IV, but not much else, I may say, hey, do you know what that is that she's hanging? Do you have questions about that? Let's have a conversation. You know, help her communicate her needs to the healthcare staff, as well as, of course, being there when baby is born, helping with those newborn things. But one of the reasons that we do this is to make sure that moms know that somebody sees you, right? You're not going through this alone. I was talking to Pastor David, and we were talking about the women, and we asked them, what is it that you need from us? And the number one thing they said is to not have to have this experience alone. All right, to not have to be alone. They didn't say, Chauntel, I want you to massage my back, or bring your aromatherapy, or whatever. They said, I just don't want to do this alone. Wow. So we attend their births, and then within 24 hours, we know that they're going to have to be separated from their babies. And so we come back to the hospital on that day, and we just do all the new mom stuff. We dress the babies up, we bring diaper bags, we have clothing in there, you know, we do a photo shoot, we have a recordable storybook so that baby is able to have mom's voice recorded in a book when they go home. We have other church partners who crochet blankets and hats. So when mom is laboring, we put that blanket on mom's chest so it soaks up her scent. And when baby is born, we put the hat on baby's head. So when they have to be separated, that blanket that smells like mom goes with baby. And so that's a comfort measure. That's one of their soothing mechanisms, right? And then the hat that smells like baby goes with mom. And she's able to keep that momentum, right? So we're trying to help strengthen those family bonds. We don't want to see that disruption. The disruption is already happening, but we're trying to minimize the harm and help folks still stay bonded with your babies. Because what you guys, one thing that most folks don't realize is most people's sentences is a year or less. So we're causing this disruption, this major disruption in both of their lives for just a couple of months. Right? So our program exists to help maintain those family bonds. Again, across the country, the average of incarcerated folks, the time that they get to spend with their babies is 48 hours. Again, here in Alabama, it's 24. And then this is our group childbirth education. So this is the weekly group that we have. This is some of our moms. And here we're creating a pathway to your birth. What do you want your birth to look like? And so they're actually teaching the class in this one. But this is we talk about all things childbirth in our weekly group that you guys provide the meals for. And this is 2 hours out of the week that they are able to just step outside of the prison. We shed that role, and we're all just moms. We're learning together, we're laughing together. Sometimes we cry, right? We're sharing our experiences. We talk about the hard things. We talk about what it's like to co-parent from the inside, right? Like, how can we still remain connected even though we're apart? Oh, I see something. This is actually one of the meals that you guys have prepared so graciously for us. And this was actually some years back, so you guys have been at this a long time. But one thing I want you guys to notice, so this is one of the salad bars, but we tell the ladies, we try to eat the colors of the rainbow, right? Because we know how important nutrition is and a variety of vitamins and minerals, right? And so we try to eat the color of the rainbow as much as possible. And so the ladies are always willing to try, like even if it's something new they've never had before. I remember one of the things was avocado, right? Like some of the ladies had never had avocado, but they were willing to give it a try, right? Like I know about the importance of health and nutrition, and I'm willing to give it a shot, even though it's something unfamiliar, right? And so I just want to share that, food is something that unites people, right? The ladies, we started out our meal plan by like just serving the ladies. And you know what they told us? Why don't y'all eat with us? Get you a plate and have a seat. We're all family here, right? And so your food, like I can't even put into words the value, right? Because what it does is it allows us to bond as humans, right? Heart to heart, we're talking about all of the things over food. And over the meal, we're not teaching a lesson, right? Like we're just relating as women in this space, okay? And then the third pillar of our program is the lactation program. Folks who are incarcerated at Tutwiler are able to express their milk, and weekly we ship it to their babies wherever they may be. So I want to also illustrate though, community partnerships. The partnership with you guys is invaluable. We don't have the resources always, right, to feed a meal every single week without help. You guys are invaluable to us. In this lactation room, this is a picture of our room, but I also want to talk about community partnerships. These rocking chairs were donated by folks in community. The walls in the prison were actually painted by the women themselves. That picture on the wall, a community member donated that. The curtains you can't hardly see up top, a nurse from the prison made, right? Like, we don't thrive without you guys, okay? I cannot overemphasize that enough. And as a result, we're able to have a lactation program. We ship the milk to the babies. And I will say about 75% of the women participate in the lactation program. And they do it because they just want to be good moms at the end of the day. When we talk about the importance and the value of breast milk on the baby's development, brain development, all of the things, the moms say, oh, that does sound like a good idea. Even though I've never done it before, this isn't my first baby, I'm willing to give it a try. And it maintains that parental baby bond, right? Like, and I always tell them, this is something that only you can do for your baby, right? They love it, because what else can I do from here? All right, and then there's life-saving benefits of breast milk. I won't go way off into this, but it protects against viruses, illness, it has antibiotic properties. I recently had a mom this week who said, my mom is getting my baby and we don't really know what's going on with WIC and SNAP, so I'm gonna breastfeed because that formula is expensive. Wow. Imagine her mom having to bear the cost of that formula, right, on her own without any supplement. And mom was able to acknowledge that and say, yeah, I'm gonna do this just for that piece, right? and it's going to have a huge impact on our family. It does reduce illnesses such as diabetes, ear infection, asthma, all of the things for the baby, but it also has benefits for mom too. Less breast cancer, less ovarian cancer, less instances of high blood pressure, all of those type things. So very beneficial for both mom and baby. And then again, just talking more about why lactation is important, cost savings for the families, but also an interesting thing that this lactation program has done, near, almost to the bottom, prison culture change. That was something we weren't expecting. The officers are like, hey, that mom hadn't been over here to pump in a while. Like a male officer, no kidding. He asked me, he said, is she coming enough? Does she have enough milk in there? Because I haven't seen her over there but a couple of times today. How do you know, sir? But he did, he started learning, right? Because it was an educational process. I had to kind of teach him about what is normal, right? Like, she is gonna need to go to the pumping room a lot. She does need access. You need to let her out. You need to unlock the door and make sure she has what she needs. And he learned, and he took it and he ran with it, right? So, but he's also supportive of the program, right? Like, even when there's times, sometimes the prison is locked down, those kind of things, he makes sure, oh, I know I have a mom that's lactating. I need to go over there and get her so that she does have access, even though, you know, not necessarily should be, you know, doing that, but I'm going to because I know how important it is for her to be able to provide milk to her baby. So, all right, and that's just statistics. About 75% of our folks are lactating. And here's a mom who's participated in our lactation program. And she said, some may think it's sad, but to me, it's keeping me present. I get cold, mean, and hard when I've lost my other kids. But now I can't block her out. She's always on my mind. I'm so glad I decided to do it. Okay, so those are her thoughts about participating in the breastfeeding program. And so we talked about, you know, trying to maintain those mother-baby bonds. You know, this is a way. And I also encourage moms who are lactating to take a picture of the baby over there so that you're thinking and it's helping with your milk production, right? Take that baby's hat that smells like baby, right? Because again, you're thinking about baby and that clues your body in like, hey, okay, it's time to make some milk. All right, and then here we have been working on special projects, just trying to get this information out to other places, other states, like, hey, Alabama Prison Birth Project is one place in one state. There's 50 states in this country, right? All of them have a prison. Let's spread this word because if we're gonna be incarcerating folks, we need to be taking better care of them. And so these are just some of the publications that we've worked on. That bottom right-hand picture with the carpet is actually us signing the anti-shackling legislation with the governor. I think that was 2022 because that was one of the first things we realized when we started on the program. Like, yo, we cannot be shackling folks to the bed while they're giving birth. But what we realized was, even though Tutwiler stopped that practice, every county jail was still doing it. And so we realized the need for legislation around it. Like, this is not okay, we should not be doing that. And so that's how we got involved with the legislative process. It's an eye-opener, to say the least. But we did it. All right, and then this, actually we were able to go to Europe with our colleagues last year, and we kind of just, they do incarceration differently. It's more humane. They keep mothers and babies together. And so we went to learn, what are you guys doing here, and why? And so what we did, we started at one of the concentration camps, and the thing that touched my heart the most was that it looks like our prisons here. And I'm just gonna briefly go through these. That's tough one. That's the bad what made it even more heartbreaking is to know that those kind of things are still happening to people. Like we're treating bodies the way that they were treated during the Holocaust, which for me was, it hit. It hit hard. But one of the things about it, we were also able to visit current prisons there. And I asked, why do you guys do things so humanely? Why do you think about, you know, making sure that people are whole when they leave your prison? You know, they have better mental health care, they have substance use treatment, all of these things that folks need to be whole. Why do you do that? And the response was, we have seen the absolute worst that humanity can be. And we vow never again will we allow ourselves to go to that. That was powerful. And that was a lesson learned. Especially working in a space where I often see humanity not valued. All right, and then these are just a few other things that we have worked on over the past few years, training other folks to be doulas, prison doulas in their own places. That's our first cohort of prison doulas, training, again, folks from across the country to do this work. That's us signing the bill. And this is the National Corrections Healthcare. So we had an article in there about prison doulas, like encouraging healthcare folks within prisons, like, hey, this is a good idea, you might want to do this. And then we've also written other pieces to kind of encourage Congress and legislation to like do better by incarcerated pregnant folks. We wrote an article about newborn care when mom is incarcerated. What are the caregivers experiencing? And one of the biggest takeaways was that caregivers for these babies are primarily older. So we're thinking grandmas, older aunties, female kin, sometimes cousins, who are frequently impoverished. About a third are impoverished. They face challenges in legally assuming care of the infant. A lot of times there's not a lot of paperwork that's done, which leads to problems with like trying to take the baby to the doctor, getting them signed up for insurance, all of those kind of things. And they primarily rely on their families for support. So not a lot of external support given. Those caregivers are a vulnerable population and they need support. That may help get rid of some of the negative consequences of assuming this role. So I encourage, you know, when you know that someone might be getting a baby in these circumstances, to just see what they need, just check on them, check on their mental health. Because if I had to get a newborn baby today unexpectedly, I would struggle. So just know, just be mindful that this is happening in all of our communities, whether you're aware of it or not. And we should all be concerned, which I know you are, but because also, not only is the mom incarcerated, but usually she has other children even outside of this first birth. Where are those kids going to school? Right? They're going to school with our kids, right? And so if they cut up in class and teacher takes away from instructional time to help work with them, right? Like it affects all of us, right? In some way or another, whether we realize it or not. All right, and those are just sources. And are there any questions? Yes.
I'm curious, Chauntel, about the continuity of prison staff, since you put in all this time to like educate, and it seems like they were really supportive of the program back when the DOJ was on their backs. But how have you found those changes happen? Do you feel like you're having to re-educate a lot and not making any forward progress?
Absolutely. The prison definitely has high turnover as far as staffing. And so we're always re-educating. We're always building and developing relationships with them. Like now we have 3 new wardens that were not the wardens. None of them were even on staff when we first started. And so they are a little less supportive. And so sometimes we have to have meetings and like, hey, this is really important. We have this agreement with you guys. Let me remind you.
mothers get vitamins and minerals to support their pregnancies?
Yes, so the mothers do get prenatal vitamins. They take them daily. They do get prenatal support as far as health care. There's an OB that from the hospital comes to the prison on the weekends, and he sees them just about every weekend, depending on where they are in their pregnancy. The frequency increases towards the end, but they do the same doctor who delivers their baby at the hospital comes to the prison to deliver their health care. So they are getting health care while they're there. Thank you. Yes.
It seems that when babies are born, they go to family members, is that right?
Yes, ideally they go to family members, not always.
But what they do, is there a provision that when the mother is released from prison, she can have the baby in?
So there's not, how do I say it? So there's not a lot of legal infrastructure, if you will. It's usually a lot of informal, like if my mom were to get my baby, it would just kind of be an agreement between her and I might sign over a power of attorney at most. And then it would be a conversation more so than a legal type thing, if that makes sense, which is also what makes it challenging when you're the caregiver, because, if I need to sign the baby up for benefits or Medicaid or WIC or whatever the thing is, they require documentation, which my name is not on because incarcerated mom is mom. And so I often see that barrier of, just the informal custody agreement or arrangement. Thank you.
Do you have what do you need from us?
Oh my goodness. Thank you. What do I need from you guys? Continued support, like to really know, 'cause full transparency, sometimes this work is hard. And to just know, just like our ladies say, to know I'm not doing it alone. To know that I have you guys' support, and when things come up, I can reach out. To know that the meal is prepared with love for the woman. I don't have a specific ask right now, but just your continued support, holding us in your hearts, praying for us. That's what we need right now.
Go ahead.
Well, mine is more of a technical type question. As far as baby health, are y'all able to track birth weight to see if the program's having a positive effect in that regard?
Yes, and actually we have been working with the University of Minnesota. They had an NIH grant to track the birth weight, and so we just finished data collection the first week of November. And so we're submitting everything to them. They're gonna compile all of the data, but from what we've gathered here, in ourselves, we have across, so the state average, like low birth weight babies, our averages are above that. We have less than average C-section rates. I think our C-section rate is about 13%, and over the state it's about 30-something%. We have less preterm babies as well. I think our preterm rate is about 5%, and I don't recall the state rate, but all of our rates are better than the overall state. Like, we are having better outcomes for outcomes.
I was going to ask about, Stephanie's question about culture and education and turnover. Is there a chaplain, prison chaplain that is either
Yes.
full-time, part-time? Or
She's, as far as I know, she's full-time. I know she used to work at Alabama State. I don't know her name off the top of my head. I can picture her face, but I can find out. Because I do know that there is a chaplain.
I'm wondering about educating that person. Or, so the
That's a good idea.
chaplain of the
That's a good idea.
The other question I had was, very, very quickly, that the 24 hours that it's paid, is that paid through the prison system or Medicare, Medicaid, or, my question kind of goes to what it would take for agreement about trying to keep the mother together with the child for not just 24, but the 48 hours,
Right.
or with the other 24 points.
Right, and so everybody that gives birth incarcerated, the prison takes out a separate Blue Cross Blue Shield policy on all the incarcerated folks. And so they're covered by the insurance. And so over all the time we've been doing this work, we keep asking, like, who's making the decision for 24 hours? The doctor will say, well, the DOC tells me I have to send them back after 24 hours because they have an infirmary there and allegedly they can take care of them. Right, and so he'll say that it's the DOC. And then when you go to ask DOC folks and say, hey, can we get 48 hours? The doctor says that it's your decision. And then they'll say, no, we don't make medical decisions, it's the doctor, right? And so they keep playing this game back and forth, and nobody wants to be accountable. So that's where we are. But that just means we haven't talked to the right folks, right?
Yeah. We got to think on both counts.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Chauntel. If anybody wants to sit and have like a cup of coffee and have more questions specific to the program, if you're a volunteer, Chauntel has time, right? So welcome to do that here. Anybody who needs to get off to church or something else in their day, thanks for being here. Thank you, Chauntel.
Pick up a 9-year-old downstairs, showing that he was successful. I would have taken him cupcakes before I got back to